It seems at this point, when he made this speech, he had really synthesized the connections between wars abroad, between economic oppression and civil rights, and that is what made him, I guess you could say, much more dangerous to the national security state. Is that about right?
No, that's definitely about right. You know, there are many assassinations of Dr. King that occur all the time. The way the corporate media present Dr. King, it is as if he died in 1963 after the I Had a Dream speech, or died in 1965 after passage of the Voting Rights Act. It is as if the post-1965, the post-death of Jim Crow, Dr. King never existed. He is murdered in a way, eradicated, liquidated, erased daily, even on his own birthday, by the powers that have the means of speaking in this society. When in fact, his entire career post-1965, after all the successes and the dramatic whirlwind defeat of Jim Crow, all of his activities were dedicated to creating a more just society that would defeat those triple evils that you spoke of.
As you point out, he said he was compelled to see the war as an enemy of the poor in the U.S., and he's making the point that every war fought abroad is a war, ends up to be a war against the poor at home.
Yes, and it became clear to us, and that's why we wrote this story and called it Give Them the MLK Test, that all of the candidates, at this time Dennis Kucinich was in the race, all of the candidates on the Democratic side, and of course the Republicans, would have failed, except for Kucinich, the MLK test. And the MLK test is quite simple. Are you going to divert the country's resources from the betterment of society to what he called the rehabilitation of the poor, or are you going to divert it towards war? And if that is the test, then that is the essential test. That is the test that he put his erstwhile comrade, collaborator, Lyndon Baines Johnson, to. And Lyndon Baines Johnson failed that test, diverted the war on party funds to the war on Vietnamese and other people, and he was denounced constantly for doing that by his former ally, Dr. Martin Luther King. If Dr. King was right about LBJ, then those of us who denounce Barack Obama, as well, of course, as Clinton, and certainly of all the Republicans for that same crime, are right as well. How can one defend Barack Obama's call for 92,000 additional soldiers and Marines for the U.S. military? Remember, these are in addition to whatever happens in Iraq. Hillary Clinton wants 80,000 additional troops, and the Bush regime officially calls for the same number as Barack Obama, 92,000 additional troops. The rationale here is that at the present level, the United States only has enough military personnel to fight 2 wars. And the ambition shared by Hillary and Barack and Bush, the ambition is to fight 3 wars. We're missing a war. And these candidates and the incumbent are calling for these soldiers so that they can have another war. This is not just a call for a bigger army, it's a call for more war.
You're listening to Flashpoints on Pacifica Radio. We're delighted to be speaking with Glenn Ford. He's the executive editor of the Black Agenda Report. They've put out a little they're giving the candidates the MLK test. Let's say it that way. And it would be hard to imagine that King would have, as Barack Obama does have, a campaign finance chair who was a pioneer, a mover and shaker. We've been reporting about this for 3 months now. A mover and shaker in the subprime bundling operation. But the worst part is that her operation, which probably sold close to 500,000 mortgages, focused on poor people and people of color, unless in other words, they became a coast-to-coast slumlord. It's hard to imagine that.
It's really not so hard to imagine. And, of course, you're talking about Obama's Chicago operative who's been in the news so much.
Exactly.
But,
Yes.
we let Barack Obama off in a way when we keep on talking about the sins of his advisors, which people can always forgive Barack Obama as a person and say, well, that's his advisors. He always will have the option once he becomes president for naming new advisors. Those are not his sins. No, these choices of advisors actually reflect Barack Obama's ideology. He showed this very, very clearly in his response to the subprime lending crisis. It made it very clear he was way to the right of the Democratic spectrum when he refused to endorse any kind of moratorium on foreclosures and any kind of freeze on interest rates. It is quite clear that as a fundamental matter of ideology, Barack Obama, like his Wall Street patrons, the people who actually bankrolled him and made him a serious candidate, that Barack Obama believes that contracts are sacrosanct. If you make a bad one, well, that's just too bad.
And that's
Obamaism. We don't have to point to his advisors.
No, that's true. It's a good point you make that it's true that Penny Pritzker is a partner of Warren Buffett, but it is also true that Barack Obama gets out of his, was proud to say he got out of one of his debates and they had a little email back and forth between him and Warren Buffett. Well, I'd like to have a little email. I bet you would like to have a little email back and forth with Barack Obama and let him know what you think. But also, keeping in the context of Martin Luther King and what he might support in terms of the King test, right now the United States government gives about, in aid, support, and sales, phony sales, if you will, $8 billion to Israel. Israel is now an illegal occupation force, and in Gaza there's 1.6 million people who are facing starvation. Barack Obama has been busy groveling for Israeli support. Do you think King would be groveling, or would he be perhaps talking about an illegal occupation and the oppression of the poor in Palestine?
Oh, there is no question. The consistency of Dr. King's ideology, the consistency is the mark of a great man, a man of principle. You can't find a hole in Dr. King's worldview. Dr. King sees war on people as war on humanity. He does not see just wars. Those are those two words don't go together. Even Barack Obama admitted that Dr. King wouldn't endorse him, but I think that he was being disingenuous when he said that, because he also said he wouldn't endorse any of the other candidates for the presidency. I think that Dr. King would have endorsed Kucinich, because Kucinich's platform very, very closely matched the kind of foreign policy that Dr. King was talking about in 67 and 68.
And, of course, Kucinich, one of the reasons, perhaps, and of course we're speculating here, but Kucinich came out with impeachment articles against Dick Cheney, and prominent among them was the wide-ranging use of a program of kidnapping and torture, which we now know has been confirmed. Can you imagine what would Martin Luther King be doing